There are no seats for the poor. Standing as if blocking the path between the bride and groom, the bride's mother, Susanna, stood. The bride, Sharon, seemed puzzled by her mother's actions. We felt the same. I exchanged glances with my son, Parker. Today is Parker and Sharon's wedding ceremony. It's supposed to be their big day, yet somehow, Susanna is dominating the scene. I looked at Susanna. She looked down on Parker and me completely. I see. Then, it can't be helped. Shall we go home? Yeah. We decided to leave the venue. I could hear Sharon seemingly pleading with her. Susanna doesn't think she's in the wrong. She thinks it's our fault, being poor and from a single-parent family. But I disagree. What's so sinful about being a single-parent family? And what's inferior about it? I'll show Susanna. The seriousness of a mother who raised her son on her own. My name is Diana, 50 years old. I was blessed with my only son, Parker, when I was 25. However, my husband, Carter, met with a traffic accident shortly after Parker was born and passed away. For the past 25 years, I've raised and supported him. I didn't remarry. I worked tirelessly in part-time jobs. All that hard work was about to be rewarded. I've got a girlfriend. I want her to meet you. How much that saved me. But Parker's engagement brought new turmoil to our home. What's Parker's annual income? The first words were not a greeting but a question. It was a luxurious mansion. As I was amazed by the surprisingly comfortable chairs, Parker's fiancée, Sharon, and her mother, Susanna, appeared. As Parker hesitated to reveal his income, Susanna snorted arrogantly. Is that all? Mom! Please stop! Sharon frowned. I must have had a similar expression. My honest opinion was that Susanna was rude. Thank you for coming today, Sharon said, trying to smooth things over. I've made tea with my favorite brand. Don't bother. These people wouldn't know the difference anyway. Mom. Sharon looked hurt. Parker, sitting opposite Sharon, said, Maybe I can't tell the difference in taste, but I want to hear what she wants to say. Parker, thank you. Finally, a smile appeared on her face. Susanna watched the exchange between the two with a look of annoyance. She doesn't seem to approve of their relationship. May I have a moment? What is it? I was beckoned by Susanna to another room. Apparently, she didn't want to cause Sharon any more discomfort. That meant the upcoming conversation was bound to be pointless. What nerve! Pardon? Your son! How dare he propose to my daughter with such a low income? Susanna raised her voice hysterically. I was speechless. Parker graduated from a fairly well-known university, and his job is not bad. And he met Sharon at his workplace. Meaning, in terms of income, they are not inferior. Yet, she unilaterally treats him as the bad guy. The heir to this house is her brother. So, she will eventually marry and leave this house. So, that's your dissatisfaction? Of course! Her face turned red with excitement. I had a detective check. You are a single-parent family. And what of it? I tilted my head. I've never felt inferior for being a single-parent family. Sure, there were days when I came home late. Those times, I might have made Parker feel lonely. But as a result, he grew up to be a fine person. I'll protect Mom for all the hardships we've faced. I'll never forget him saying that on his 18th birthday. True to his word, he has been striving. He went to university on a scholarship, always keeping his grades at the top. After graduating, he got a job at his current company. He's my pride and joy. I couldn't just stand by when someone spoke ill of Parker. Excuse me, but you must have irresponsibly had a child and then been abandoned by the man. How despicable. You're the one with a terrible imagination, I said, my fist trembling. Susanna frowned. What did you say? How can you only imagine such vulgar things? What's in your head is much worse. I won't allow any more insults to my wife. A low, growling voice sounded. Looking up, an elderly man was standing at the entrance of the room, glaring at us. Carl! Susanna cried out and ran to the man. He embraced Susanna with a sloppy smile. It seems this man is Susanna's husband, Carl. Susanna wore a triumphant smile. She seems to believe that being married somehow makes her superior. Listen, Carl. Yes, I understand. Carl, who had been speaking to his wife in a saccharine tone, suddenly changed his expression and glared at us. If you continue to insult my wife, I will have to call a lawyer. It was you who started criticizing my son unilaterally. I appealed. But it was useless. Carl, smitten with his wife, saw me as an enemy. So, someone like you is going to be part of my daughter's family. Sharon has poor judgment in people. Yes, indeed. The couple looked down on Parker and me together. As I was at a loss for words, footsteps could be heard. Stop it, both of you. Sharon. I thought it was strange that you suddenly disappeared, so I came looking for you. Parker said with a voice trying to suppress his anger. Sharon, I'm sorry. We're going to leave now. Parker. Sharon looked down, seeming lonely. Parker momentarily made a face as if he was about to linger, but then he quickly changed his expression. Let's go, Mom. Yes. Parker took my hand and started walking. Susanna's voice was thrown at our backs. Don't ever come back to our house again. As if we would, I thought. Sharon did nothing wrong. Rather, it was sad that she was caught between her parents and us. I just couldn't forgive her parents. What should I do? Is it okay to just watch over their relationship? Hey, Parker. I have no intention of breaking up with her, Parker said, seemingly sensing my feelings. His eyes looked down, filled with apology. I'm really in love with her. So, with those words and expressions, I made up my mind. I'll support you too. Mom. He must have thought I would oppose it. Parker smiled, relieved. And his smile made me smile too. I've been quietly watching over their relationship. Since then, we haven't met her parents. Sharon seems to avoid the topic, and when she comes to our house, she talks about other things. Naturally, Parker leads the conversation. He makes sure not to immerse themselves in their own world, always including me in their talks. I'm very grateful for that. Mom, about the venue. The venue? What about it? I tilted my head, and the two exchanged looks. Mom, get it together. We just talked about it. About our wedding ceremony. The wedding ceremony! I exclaimed foolishly. So, you're finally getting married. Although our parents are against it, it's our life. Sharon seemed complicated, but determination was at the root of it. Sharon had chosen to walk through life with Parker. As a mother, could there be anything more gratifying? I think highly of Sharon. If she can support Parker as his wife, there's nothing more reassuring. I was teary-eyed. Parker noticed and panicked. Mom. Sorry, I know it's too early to cry, but... I hastily wiped away my tears. Sharon offered me a handkerchief. A white handkerchief with scattered light blue clovers. Diana. Thank you. I was happy, having such a kind son and his bride by my side. But this feeling of happiness was cruelly shattered. The nightmare began at the wedding ceremony venue. Oh? I stopped in confusion. I couldn't find my seat anywhere in the venue. I walked around the venue to check, but still, there was no seat for me. Perhaps it was a mistake by the staff. Thinking this, I approached a staff member. "Excuse me. Are you still here?" The response came not from a staff member but from Susanna. She stood with her arms crossed, laughing unreservedly. "Shouldn't you take a hint by now? This marriage is very important to our family," Susanna said with a voice that looked down on me. Indeed, Susanna had arranged the entire ceremony. All of Sharon's preferences were rejected, and Parker's opinions were ignored. "Mom, wait." Sharon and Parker approached, looking concerned. Susanna stepped between them, standing protectively like a mother shielding her children, blocking the bride and groom. And then she said those words. "There are no seats for the poor." Ah, I see. So, there was never a seat for me from the beginning. Understanding this, I was filled with a sense of emptiness. "Shall we go home?" "Yeah." Parker took my hand and we started to leave. Sharon seemed to be pleading with her mother. But Susanna remained unfazed. Thus, the nightmare of a wedding ceremony ended. As we got into the car, Parker received a call on his mobile phone. It was from Sharon. "Are you two okay?" "Yeah, sorry for leaving you alone there." "It's not your fault. It's my parents' fault." Her voice was clearly dejected. Parker must have wanted to stay by her side. I lifted my face and said, "Stay with Sharon." "But I can go home alone." I tried to remember how to smile, but my expression was stiff. "Sorry." After hesitating, Parker went back to the venue. Driving home, I wondered, what's so wrong with being a single-parent family? Susanna had mentioned hiring a detective. If so, she didn't understand anything about him at all. But maybe that's for the best. I realized then what I was about to do. It's clear. I will give that hateful woman what she deserves. I have all the cards in hand. Susanna must have only paid attention to what was convenient for her. So she hadn't noticed. I returned home and waited for him. Parker came back with Sharon. "I'm sorry about my parents." "It's okay." I had regained my calm demeanor. The two seemed relieved. Looking at each other with reassurance, I said, "I'll contact Walker." "Eh?" Parker's smile faded. Sharon looked puzzled. "What's wrong?" "Walker is my grandfather. He's the president of the Woodward Company." Such. Sharon seemed to understand the situation. She spoke in a flustered manner. "Is there no other way?" "We've reached our limit," I said in a low, moaning voice. "Walker promised me when Carter passed away. He said if there was ever any trouble, he would definitely help." That's right. The day Carter was in an accident and never returned. "Do you want us to take Parker in?" It must be hard for a woman alone. Walker, Parker's grandfather, my father-in-law, had offered. But I had shaken my head. "I will raise him by myself." So be it. Walker had promised. The moment to fulfill that promise had finally arrived. Dad was supposed to be the successor of the company, Parker said, looking down. "That you were the grandson of the president." I kept quiet because I didn't want to be judged by Grandpa's prestige. "I understand that, but I wished you had told me." Sharon's voice had completely fallen. It's not surprising. The Woodward Company is a globally renowned corporation. Having someone with such a company as their backing, Susanna has made an enemy. They're finished. The retaliation began immediately. Our business partners are withdrawing one after another, it seems. So, I nodded without surprise. Since then, Sharon had returned home only once to collect her belongings and hadn't returned to her parents' house. She's essentially living at our house now, helping with household chores wherever she can. But the look on her back is far from that of a blissful new bride. Right now, she is caught between her family and her marriage. It must be hard for her. Parker is worried about her exhausted state. He buys her favorite sweets on his way home from work and listens to her feelings now and then. If this continues, my family will be left homeless. There's nothing we can do about it. I sighed back at the tearful Sharon. Walker accepted me, someone who didn't match his family's social status or education, as his son's wife. It was a testament to his trust and love for his child, who had made his own choice. That is. She hesitated. Her family condemned her for being from a single-parent home, treating it as a fault. They looked down on Parker for not being suitable for their family. But what is the reality? That poor-looking man is the grandson of a big company's president? Impossible! Shouldn't you apologize now? Don't say stupid things. The conversation between her parents that Sharon overheard when she went home to collect her things was just like that. However, since that was the only time she went back, what her parents talked about after is unknown. My mom isn't the type to apologize to anyone. Indeed. Some people only feel fulfilled by looking down on others. Such petty people. And also pitiable. What if you suggest apologizing to your family? It's impossible. Or rather, it would be pointless. Doing that would only make my mom more stubborn. What a troublesome person! He was frustrated. Sharon, too, shook her head sadly. It seemed there was no solution for them to improve the situation. Nor did I have one. Or rather, I had no intention of stopping it. They were intoxicated with power, looking down on others, unafraid to trample on those around them. And by misjudging who to look down upon, they are now on the receiving end. It was only a matter of time before they were crushed by power. What would they do then? If they're as competent as they boasted, they'll manage on their own. Diana. Sharon finally broke into tears. Mom, that's enough, isn't it? Maybe it's time to call Grandpa. Just then, Sharon received a call on her mobile phone. Sharon looked up, wiping her tears to check the notification. Her eyes widened in surprise. Mom. Go ahead. They might have their reasons too. Yes. I encouraged her, and Sharon reluctantly answered the call. A loud voice could be heard from the phone even from where I was. You traitor! Running away as soon as our family is in danger. Aren't you ashamed? I'm not running away. Sharon sounded somewhat indignant. Understandably so. She hasn't run from anyone. Yesterday and today, she's been facing reality. Worrying about her family while choosing to stay with us. Not to ingratiate herself with us, but to stop me. Sharon became more assertive. Mom, do you see now? Judging people superficially is what led to this, right? Don't act like you understand. The voice of Susanna, furious. Sharon, in contrast, was calm. Maybe her suffering has given her something to think about. Why did you have to be so cruel? I wanted to get along with my new family. But you couldn't do that. That woman doesn't fit into our family. Susanna seems to have narrowed down her disdain to me alone. I bit my lip. Yes. I am just an ordinary woman, born into an average family, without notable education, looks, or anything. But someone accepted and loved me for who I am. He was from a prestigious family, and at first, I was intimidated. But eventually, we were drawn to each other and decided to marry. Do you have any regrets? That's all Walker asked. There's no way I would. I can't forget his face when he answered. The warm and reliable profile of him saying he would protect me. Yet, Carter broke his promise so easily. He left for heaven alone, leaving me behind, my dearest. Tell Susanna. What should I tell her? I cut through my self-mockery and said in my usual tone, that I'm giving you a chance. What a proposition. What kind of face I was making. I didn't even know. I'll have Walker come over. Then you can appeal directly that this treatment is unfair. I'd like that. It seems my voice reached without the need for Sharon to mediate. Susanna said with a voice that seemed to put forth her last bit of defiance. Getting upset over such a trivial matter and opposing us. It may be trivial, but I don't mind being the focus of attacks and insults. But what about Parker, whose mother-in-law will be a woman with such a character? When will he too start receiving poor treatment? This isn't just about pride. It's a fight of a mother worrying and protecting her child. Susanna seemed not to understand that. The direct confrontation that ensued turned out to be quite pitiful. I'm terribly sorry. For what, exactly, are you apologizing? As soon as Carl entered the room, he apologized deeply. Walker sat on the sofa, observing the couple. Susanna looked down on Carl with disdain. Carl! Won't you bow your head too? It's entirely our fault. He began to sob. I stood beside Walker. Parker and Sharon were not allowed to attend. It would be too cruel a scene for them to witness, Walker decided. Entirely? Walker's eyebrows twitched. Explain specifically. What did you do, and what was wrong? That is... Carl fell silent. It seems he couldn't answer the question. No wonder. They don't truly think they're in the wrong. They're just apologizing to placate Walker, waiting for the storm to pass. Like a child scolded by a teacher at school. So you're bowing your head without even knowing what you did wrong. That's, well... Carl looked helplessly at his wife. Susanna smiled. It's about the oversight of not preparing a seat for Diana. We're truly sorry. An oversight? I raised my voice. I remember. There are no seats for the poor. What are you talking about? She acted as if she didn't understand what was said. I was dumbfounded. Susanna was trying to pretend it didn't happen because Walker wasn't there. How dirty can you get? You're the one with the paranoia. Stop slandering us already. That's enough, Walker said wearily. So you insist it was an oversight? Of course. Susanna answered immediately. Hope was in her eyes. If she could convince Walker, it would be their victory. But in the next moment, he was furious. How far will you go with your lies? I've confirmed your actions with everyone at the venue, not just my grandchildren. Everyone. That's impossible. The light faded from Susanna's eyes, and she collapsed on the spot. Carl, do something. She clung to his husband beside her, but he was just crying. Walker addressed the pitiful couple. If you had truly apologized from the bottom of your hearts, I might have forgiven you. But what about now? Nothing but lies for self-preservation. I'm so appalled I'm at a loss for words. It's not like your son chose a worthless woman. Susanna screamed in rage. Aren't you frustrated? That such a woman would become your son's wife. Do you hate Diana that much? Walker looked more pitiful than angry. Susanna shouted. Yes. I didn't like that woman. So I was mean to her. Just for that, why should I suffer like this? Because that mindset is incompatible with mine. Walker's voice was instructive. I wanted to understand what kind of person Diana is. Saying so, Walker looked at me. I instinctively straightened up. Walker exuded the sage who had attained enlightenment. Carter wouldn't choose a strange woman. So, there must be charm in this person. I wanted to know that charm by talking. What a waste of time! Susanna scoffed, but he remained calm. Diana is good and hardworking. She raised my grandson alone commendably. Carter's judgment of people was not mistaken. Yes. Exactly. Carl seized the opportunity to cozy up to him. He seemed to be looking for a chance to seek forgiveness. My wife is quite different. Susanna lacks judgment in people. That's why she targeted Diana and Parker. You're cowardly, man. He was speechless. Walker slightly frowned and said, Are you pushing all the blame onto your wife? First off, if that's the case, you're at fault for choosing a woman with no judgment. That's enough! Susanna yelled. All eyes turned to her. Susanna twisted her lips and said, President, you really want to side with Diana, don't you? Of course. Walker nodded. Then, talking is useless. I think so too. When Walker nodded again, Susanna had already turned her back. Carl, let's go. No point in saying anything more. Now, we have to somehow rebuild the company on our own. That's easier said than done. All our clients have left because of the president's pressure. His meek attitude seemed to displease her. She says in an irritated voice, Then we'll find new clients. That's impossible. He was dragged away as he left. Left behind, I sighed. Thank you, Walker. No need. Walker shook his head leisurely. Then, as if to admonish me, he said, You earned my trust through your own strength and actions. And they earned my disappointment with their words and actions. Yes. Walker had not blindly sided with me. It was my actions that gained his trust to begin with. Meaning, if I were to stray from the path, he wouldn't help me anymore. I'll remember this. I bowed deeply to Walker. The situation of Susanna and her husband's downfall was conveyed through Sharon. She has been staying with us, and since then, she has started to contact her. Sharon, come back home now. You need to help with the business. No, Mom. I'm not coming back. Determination was evident in Sharon's eyes. You want to marry me off to a wealthy family, don't you? You child. It seemed I had hit the mark. Her growl was audible even from here. You've changed. But... It's okay. I smiled reassuringly. Sharon nodded and handed me the phone. Susanna? How dare you let me hear that voice? I'm not talking to you because I want to. I took over the phone to settle things with her. And also out of concern for Sharon. I said in a calm voice, I've decided to forget about your meanness. What? A foolish response came back. I continued, I don't want to be involved with you forever. So, I decided to forget about you. Hating someone is just tiring, and there's no benefit to me. Don't talk pretentiously. She snarled like a carnivore. I won't forget you. I'll hold a grudge against you for life. I understood why Walker didn't accept Susanna's apology. in that chilling voice. "Give me back my daughter. She's my son's wife. There's a marriage certificate." "Then I'll make them divorce right now." To the shouting Susanna. "That's impossible," I said. "It's something she should know. Sharon is pregnant. With Parker's child." What?" That was all Susanna could say before falling silent. She seemed unsure of how to react. After a pause, Susanna spoke, her voice trembling. "Please, give me back my daughter. I don't want the child in her belly." "Are you still saying things like that?" I sighed. Looking at Sharon, she was gently caressing her not yet prominently swollen belly. Could she possibly think about abandoning her born child and returning to her parents' home? That's unimaginable. Being a mother herself, how could she not understand? "Do you intend to separate Sharon and her child? If she has a child, she won't find another marriage." She was being selfish, apparently planning to use them for her own convenience. "Don't get involved with Sharon anymore. I am her mother." Susanna weakly protested but didn't give up. "Give her back." "Don't be unreasonable. I'm hanging up now." "Wait. The pregnancy, that's a lie. She can't be that." She was panicking. "Let me talk to her again." "That is, I'll talk to her," Sharon interjected, seeing the situation. "She's in a delicate period now." Worrying it might stress her, I ultimately handed over the phone. "Mom?" "Sharon, right? You're lying, aren't you? That woman is lying, right?" "Mom, it's all true," Sharon said calmly. "I'm going to be a mother in this home. So, I can't meet your expectations, and please, don't call me anymore." Her voice carried a definite force. She groaned, troubled. Eventually, her voice became muffled, seemingly crying. "Sharon, please. We have no other means. Our house is falling apart. Without it, Carl and I have nowhere to go. Relatives have disowned us. What are we supposed to do?" "That's something for adults to figure out." Taking back the phone, I said, "All of this is a result of your actions. She must take responsibility as an adult. Being punished for looking down on me and Parker just for being a single-parent family." "Wait!" Her voice was desperate. I silently ended the call. Despite persistent calls thereafter, Sharon, looking exasperated, turned off her mobile phone. Walker was also pleased with Sharon's pregnancy. "I wish to be involved with the family this time, truly." "Yes, please come to visit our home," Parker replied proudly. Because the house had become too small, moving to a new place in spring was decided. Due to budget constraints, it's a bit far from the station and slightly inconvenient, but it has a large garden. A home where dreams of home gardening and various flowers expand. Since then, Susanna has quieted down significantly. Occasionally, Carl contacts Sharon, but it seems only to vent about the failing company and his grievances towards Susanna. "Dad just blames everything on Mom. I wish he'd be a bit more responsible." "Yeah, especially now that he's going to be a grandpa," Parker said with a laugh. Sharon smiled too. Seeing their harmonious relationship fills me with contentment. Life in the new home was going smoothly. I quit my job to focus on homemaking. Sharon worked until her belly grew considerably, but is now on leave for childbirth at home. The baby born was a girl. "Christina, it's such nice weather. The flowers are beautiful too." Sharon smiled at her, and the baby in her arms smiled back. Christina, named so, resembled her father more. "Christina, which do you like more, flowers or Mom?" She smiles looking at both. No, she's happy because her mom is beautiful. Don't say such flattering things. Parker made Sharon laugh. Can I hold her too? Yes. I lifted my granddaughter Christina into my arms. She was a tiny life, newly born. Yet, the weight in my arms felt significant. What a good girl. Thanks to you. Sharon's smile had evolved from her once innocent expression to one filled with the intelligence of a mother. Grandpa will be coming over for Christmas. Oh, we need to start preparing then. I handed Christina back to Sharon and stood up. I'll help too. Thank you. Let's see, until Christmas. I glanced at the calendar. It was filled with various entries. Notes about future family plans and work schedules. I felt the presence of the passing time, a testament to our lives inscribed there. Quit loafing around, you useless old hag! Suddenly, a dull thud hit my back. As I involuntarily groaned and turned around, Marissa had stuck out her foot. Then, thuds kept hitting my back repeatedly. I heard Mel barking at Marissa, trying to protect me. Ugh, so annoying. I'm going out for a bit, Marissa said before leaving. Stunned by the unexpected pain, I was immobilized. Then, my mother-in-law Norma approached me. Don't just lie there in the way. You're a nuisance, Norma said, her words unkind and her gaze full of inconvenience, causing tears to spill from my eyes. Sensing my distress, Mel growled at Norma. Oh, scary, scary. Train that thing properly. Unlike you, I'll be going shopping with the lovely Marissa. Norma left without helping me. My only ally was Mel, who looked worried and licked my face. After they had gone, I heard the front door burst open and sensed someone rushing in. Still unable to move. Are you okay? An unexpected person came to my rescue. I am Olivia, a 32-year-old housewife. My husband, Nathan, works for a major corporation. Having once worked there myself, we have plenty of savings, allowing us to live comfortably even with me being a housewife. For the past few years, we've been living with Nathan's mother, Norma, in his family home. How am I supposed to live on my own now that my husband is gone? After being pleaded with by Norma, who would call incessantly every day or suddenly visit, we reluctantly agreed to live together. Initially, Nathan and I planned to share household duties while continuing to work, but a wife working is out of the question. If you work outside, you'll definitely cheat, Norma harassed me daily, even calling my company and causing work disruptions, leading to my resignation despite being retained. Upon this, Nathan apologized to me and scolded Norma. Just a minute, Olivia. My room is a mess. Oh, Norma, didn't you tell me not to enter your room because you didn't want me touching anything? So, please take care of it yourself. Or have you forgotten that already? Maybe we should get you checked at the hospital? You. Moreover, I'm not one to hold back in response. Having lost my parents early on, I've faced my fair share of hardships, so I won't be defeated by Norma alone. Nathan has given me the green light to speak my mind without reservation against his mom. Speaking of Nathan, he has a brother, Marcus, who is dearly adored by Norma. Honestly, I'm not fond of my brother-in-law, Marcus. I've met him a few times, but he's always expressionless, doesn't even twitch an eyebrow when Norma clings to him, and his aloofness makes it hard to understand what he's thinking. As a result, I keep my distance from Marcus, which means I also have little to do with his wife, Marissa. However, I've heard from Nathan that their marriage was heavily pushed by Norma and Marissa's parents. He's not a bad person, though, Nathan would say with a wry smile about the stoic Marcus. Then, unexpectedly, "Hello. We'll be in your care from today." "What?" "Oh, welcome, both of you." Marcus and his wife appeared at the entrance with a lot of luggage. And at Marcus's feet was a restless small dog. "What are you doing? Hurry up and bring in the luggage." "Wait a minute. What's this about?" I asked, confused, and Marcus looked puzzled. Apparently, Marcus was transferred to a new hotel nearby, and due to Norma and Marissa's strong insistence, they decided to move in with us. And today was their moving day. I was not informed about this. Indeed, Norma had ordered me to stay home today, but... "You didn't know?" Yeah. Marcus sighed deeply at my response. Then, he looked around the house. "Where's Nathan?" "Nathan is on a long business trip." Unfortunately, Nathan was on a long business trip. He couldn't refuse the trip related to his qualifications, and he left worried about me. I wanted to go with him, but I stayed behind, defeated by Norma's hysterical screaming. I've been outplayed. If I had been told, I would have opposed living with Marcus and his wife, or followed Nathan on his business trip. They must have kept it a secret until the last day for that reason. Norma gives me a nasty smirk. "Move it! Standing there, you're just in the way." "Carry your own luggage." "Sorry, but could you please take care of Mel?" Marcus sighed deeply again and handed me the leash of the small dog. The little dog, Mel, seemed friendly, quickly warming up to me with sniffs and licks. Though taken aback by the suddenness, I fell in love with adorable Mel, as I've always liked dogs. Nevertheless, I made sure to report this incident to Nathan. "What were you thinking? Making decisions about moving in together without telling us. Olivia could have come to stay with me." "Don't be ridiculous. Marcus and his wife are tired. We need to help them settle in." Despite Nathan's scolding over the phone, Norma seemed unfazed. Worst of all, in the chaos, Norma hid something precious of mine, leaving me unable to leave for Nathan's. So, I had no choice but to continue living with them. "Let's get along from now on." I might be younger, but as the wife of Marcus, the eldest son, I rank above you." "Huh?" "So, we're clear." Old-timer. I had a bad feeling not only about Marissa, who said this, but also about Marcus, who just silently watched us. The days that followed were challenging. Despite being a housewife like me, Marissa did no household chores. "Oh, can you take care of this too?" "It's no trouble since you're already doing it, right?" Marissa, in cahoots with Norma, dumped everything on me. Norma favored her because she was Marcus's young wife. "Marissa's beautiful hands would suffer if she did the dishes. Olivia, you do them." They pushed all the dishwashing onto me. "Marissa's pretty face would get dirty if she cleaned. Olivia, you do the cleaning." They dumped all the cleaning tasks on me too. Marissa just tagged along and laughed. Apparently, Marissa's family has been wealthy hoteliers for generations, never having to struggle, accustomed to having others do everything for them. So, having others do household tasks was normal for her. "Come on, do your own share at least." It saves on the water bill if we do it together. Plus, what's the difference between doing it for one or two? Marissa is right. You have nothing but household skills, so just do it quietly. It was manageable when it was just Norma, but with Marissa joining in, it became troublesome. It was a constant battle of 2 against 1. With the increased number of people, I was the only one doing chores, adding to my burden. That I could still endure. But Marissa even pushed the care of Mel, the dog they brought, onto me. "Mel's walk is your task today too." "Hey, you brought him." He doesn't listen to me. Plus, taking him for walks is good exercise for you, right? You need to stay active while you can, unlike me in my 20s. You're elderly in your 30s. She mocked me with those words. To 25-year-old Marissa, I, at 32, might seem old. But what about Norma? And Marcus, her beloved, is 36, more than a decade older than her. Yet, weighed down by the daily chores and caring for Mel, I couldn't muster the energy to retort. Incidentally, Marcus has the kind of looks that could make him a model if not for his aloofness, appearing quite youthful. Marissa is deeply in love with such a Marcus, acting all cute and lovely in front of him. So, there would be no scorn or dumping of chores if Marcus was around, but, being busy, he always comes home late and is unaware of the situation. Oh, Mel. Are you trying to comfort me? The only ally I have is Mel, who, feeling attached, is licking my hand even now. Mel's presence is also a reason I can't leave this house. Without me, Mel would quickly decline. All I could do was fret over the current situation. Let's take a break. Between household chores and taking care of Mel, I was utterly exhausted. Mel is still okay. He's become my source of comfort, after all. But being burdened with all the household chores, lately, I've been ordered to redo laundry because the folding wasn't to their liking or the seasoning wasn't right. And then they go out to eat or buy new clothes, making my efforts all for naught. Completely drained mentally, I decided to lie down for a break, just 5. No, 3 minutes. As I was drifting off with Mel snuggling up to me, feeling his warmth. Ouch! A sharp pain shot through my back. Quit loafing around, you useless old hag! Another dull thud hit my back. As I involuntarily groaned and turned around, Marissa had stuck out her foot. Then, thuds kept hitting my back repeatedly. I heard Mel barking at Marissa, trying to protect me. Ugh, so annoying. I'm going out for a bit, Marissa said before leaving. Stunned by the unexpected pain, I was immobilized. Then, my mother-in-law Norma approached me. Don't just lie there in the way. You're a nuisance, Norma said, her words unkind and her gaze full of inconvenience, causing tears to spill from my eyes. Sensing my distress, Mel growled at Norma. Oh, scary, scary. Train that thing properly. Unlike you, I'll be going shopping with the lovely Marissa. Norma left without helping me. My only ally was Mel, who looked worried and licked my face. Help me. Nathan. I could only call out for Nathan, who wasn't here. After they had gone, I heard the front door burst open and sensed someone rushing in. Unable to move due to the pain in my back. Are you okay? An unexpected person came to my rescue. Why? I saw everything that happened. The one who lifted me up was Marcus, pointing at a pet camera. Actually, there was a pet camera in the room, brought by Marcus for Mel. I thought I'd look at Mel on the pet camera to get some comfort during my break. This pet camera could be checked from a smartphone. And it had become a habit for Marcus to watch Mel during his breaks. Today, he saw everything that happened with me, Marissa, and Norma, and hurried back home after getting permission from his workplace. I'm truly sorry for what my family did. Marcus then took me to the hospital. Fortunately, I hadn't fractured anything and didn't need to be hospitalized. But considering my situation, it was decided that I couldn't return to that house, so Marcus arranged for me to stay at the hotel he worked at. Nathan, it's me. Come to the hotel I'm about to tell you as soon as you can. I'll let the hotel know. Marcus immediately contacted Nathan and offered to pay for the stay. Initially hesitant, but, please, just let me make this right. And if those two contact you, you can ignore them. Hearing this, I decided to accept his help. Afterwards, as soon as I lay down on the fluffy bed, I fell asleep almost instantly. When I woke up, it was evening, and the sound of my ringing smartphone woke me. "Excuse me, Nathan has arrived, so I brought him." "Olivia, are you okay?" Nathan. Tears nearly spilled at the sight of Nathan rushing over to me. Nathan and Marcus, both showing concern for me. Suddenly, Marcus's gaze shifted to my continuously ringing smartphone. "Olivia, sorry. I'll answer it." After saying that, Marcus took my smartphone. He immediately put it on speaker, so we all could hear the voice. "Where have you gone? And ignoring my calls. If you have time to play, then hurry back and start cooking. Today we're having something luxurious." Marissa. With just one word from Marcus, Marissa's complaints came to a halt. "Marcus." The words that followed were trembling. She probably never expected Marcus to answer. "Why is Marcus?" "Pet camera. I saw everything you did." "No way." "Stay quiet at home until I return. Tell Mom the same." With that, Marcus ended the call and handed me back the phone. His cold tone towards Marissa contrasted with his genuinely concerned expression for me. Then, I was going to stay in the hotel with Nathan tonight and return home temporarily tomorrow. After sorting out some work, Marcus opened up about his feelings. "To be honest, I detest my mom internally." It seemed Marcus was fed up with Norma's suffocating love and meddling in everything. Thanks to his late father-in-law, he had managed to escape home and live and work at a distant hotel. But, being forced into marriage, he was sent back home and thus stayed late at work to avoid being at home as much as possible. Apparently, Marissa fell in love with me at first sight, and my marriage was arranged by her and my father-in-law, who is a hotel owner. What does that mean? If they married me off to their daughter, they'd transfer me to a hotel being built near our home. That way, we could live together again. So, to Norma, Marissa was a dear ally who had brought Marcus back home, a benefactor for getting him to return. That's why she favored her so much. And for Marcus, home must have felt suffocating. He might be expressionless at home, but at work, Marcus always had a gentle and wonderful smile. Being at home must have been really stressful. "What will you do now, Olivia? Why don't you come with me on my business trip?" "I'd love to, more than anything." I told them both about the important item that Norma had hidden. Immediately, both showed angry expressions, truly brothers. "Mom, I'll never forgive her." "We'll definitely get it back tomorrow. Go with Nathan and don't worry." Encouraged by Marcus's words, I nodded. The next day, taking a day off, Nathan, Marcus, and I returned home together. "Do you understand what you've done? How dare you hurt someone important to me? I'll never forgive you." "That's..." "Both of you, calm down." Now it was 2 against 3, a complete reversal of the situation. By the way, I had recorded all the previous verbal abuse. Hearing it, Nathan and Marcus looked so menacing, I was scared myself. "Olivia is not your housekeeper. She will go with Nathan to the business trip. I'm utterly disappointed in you." That's because Olivia tricked. When Marissa tried to retort, Mel growled lowly at her. Mel, who had not shown himself since we arrived. In his mouth, he was carrying something. "That's..." What Mel had was my precious item, a ring that belonged to my mother. I had kept it safe, but Norma had taken it without permission. "Mel found it for me." Overwhelmed, I petted Mel, and he happily wagged his tail. This dog was like an angel to me. Marcus, who had been smiling gently at us, turned back to Norma and the rest with a blank expression. If you object, I'm willing to consider divorce and separation. No way! We wouldn't object. At Marcus's words, both raised their voices in what sounded like screams. Neither wanted to be separated from Marcus, it seems. The acceptance was so straightforward it was anticlimactic. As I was about to pack my things and leave, Olivia, if you don't mind, could you take Mel with you? Really? Mel was whimpering sadly at my feet. I wanted to take him if I could. But Mel was supposed to be Marcus's source of comfort too. It's better for Mel to go with Olivia. If it's not too much to ask, I'd appreciate it if I could see him occasionally. Of course. Thank you so much. I thanked Marcus and left the in-laws' house with Nathan and Mel. For now, we decided to stay at a hotel within the same chain that allows pets. Because Nathan's temporary housing at his business trip location doesn't allow pets. The hotel arrangements were made by Marcus and Marissa's mother. It turns out the hotel business belongs to Marissa's maternal family. Marissa turned out the way she did because her father, who married into the family, spoiled her. On the other hand, her mother is strict, and not wanting to live with her, Marissa agreed to live with Norma. And now, her mother has arranged a new house for us as compensation for the trouble Marissa caused, as part of the divorce settlement. Is this really okay? Why not? If we didn't accept, we'd be apologizing forever. So, we gratefully accepted. Then, Nathan talked with his company and decided to stay at the branch office of his business trip location. A new employee with the same qualifications as Nathan has become independent at the headquarters, so the transfer was approved. Moreover, I was allowed to return to work at the branch office. What about Norma and Marissa? Marcus, me, and her mom took care of scolding them. I hadn't been to the in-laws' house because I was focusing on preparing for work and treatment, but afterward, the three of them went there to lecture Norma, Marissa, and Marissa's father. The trio was reportedly in tears, apologizing profusely. And as part of the divorce settlement, Norma and Marissa were made to work as cleaning staff at the hotel. Marissa's dad, wanting to avoid divorce at all costs, couldn't assist Marissa. Marcus said he keeps them in line by threatening divorce or separation whenever they start to complain. Thanks to Marcus keeping an eye on them, the compensation money from the divorce settlement has started coming in little by little. Buying treats for Mel with that money always brings him joy and comfort. Sometime after the incident, I received a call from Marissa. Please, convince Marcus. Apparently, Marcus had filed for divorce from Marissa after a portion of the settlement money was paid. Additionally, because they had moved out of the family home, both seemed to have lost their minds. Despite repeated pleas to reconsider and come back, they were ignored, and eventually, their contact was blocked. I'm really serious about Marcus. So, about Marcus? Your phrasing makes it sound like there are others. Marissa let out a regretful sound. It seemed she had dug her own grave, and I couldn't help but smile. That's not what I meant. Don't worry. I'll make sure to mention this to Marcus. Goodbye. Right before the call ended, I could hear Marissa's scream. Thinking, serves you right. I reached out to Marcus. Olivia, what's wrong? Did my ex-wife do something? I almost laughed at Marcus's immediate concern. Marissa might be seeing another man. Oh, that sounds worth investigating. Thank you for the information. After finishing my call with Marcus, Norma reached out next. I picked up the phone, somewhat amused, wondering what she would say. Do you know where Marcus has gone? Well, even if I did, I wouldn't tell you. What's that supposed to mean? Give me back my Marcus. I'll leave you with one last piece of advice. Marcus says he dislikes you. After kindly informing her, I heard Norma's stunned voice. That's a lie. Just telling you the truth. I replied and hung up. Imagining Norma's probable meltdown made me want to burst out laughing. At that moment, Mel came up to me, tilting his head and playfully engaging. Then, I heard that Marcus had successfully demanded the divorce settlement from Marissa. Marissa tried to appeal to her dad, but given that he was divorced from her mom, no help was forthcoming. Without Marcus, Marissa saw no reason to stay in the in-laws' house but had nowhere else to go. Norma, thoroughly disliked by Marcus because of Marissa, wanted to kick her out but couldn't afford to lose another breadwinner. So, they ended up living together, hurling insults at each other, as Marcus, now free and relieved, informed me. On another note, I received wonderful news. Olivia. What's the baby's gender? Looks like it's a boy. Really? Wow, I can't wait to meet him. Not long after leaving the in-laws' house, I discovered I was pregnant with Nathan's child. The absence of Norma's stress seemed to have welcomed the baby into our lives. Mel, sensing our happiness, joined in the celebration. Furthermore, I heard about an engagement from the ever-helpful Marcus. He was always opposed by Mom and forcibly separated. Marcus originally had a partner, but due to being forcibly married, they had split up. This time, he was able to reconcile with his ex-girlfriend and plans to marry her soon to ensure they won't be separated again. While preparing for the wedding, Marcus, who started training as a manager under Marissa's mother, seemed busy but had a genuine smile on his face. Then, I gave birth to our adorable son. Nathan has been very supportive with household chores and childcare, always taking action before I even need to ask, which has been a huge help. Mel loves his little brother too and rushes over to soothe him whenever he cries. Nathan and I found great comfort in their actions. Marcus, now far removed from his time in the in-laws' house, is enjoying his postponed newlywed life with a smile, alongside his new wife. His wife and I get along well, building a much better relationship than I ever had with Marissa. She's also a kind person who offers me help. Hey Nathan, can I go help out this time? Yeah, I'll come too. When our son was a bit older, we found out that Marcus's wife was pregnant. Now it was my turn to be there for her. This giving and receiving of help. I believe this is what family should truly be like. One shouldn't cling or depend entirely on someone else. And certainly, berating or resorting to violence is out of the question. To ensure Norma doesn't become a negative example of spoiling her beloved son too much. I swore that deeply in my heart. Finally, the nuisance is gone. From today, we're living with my parents at my house. Matthew's words hung in the air as I stood dumbfounded in front of our demolished family home, right after my parents had passed away. What are you talking about? Have you lost your mind too? Hurry up and bring the inheritance over to my place. I couldn't help but burst into laughter at his words. I see. So that's what this was about. What? Why are you laughing? You guys don't know? Know what? As I laughed, Matthew and the in-laws looked at me quizzically. It was then that I decided to tell them the truth. My name is Madison. I was born the eldest daughter in a family of ordinary full-time working parents. I have one older brother. A perfectly normal family. At 29, I married my husband Matthew, and we had 2 children. Juggling work and child-rearing, before I knew it, I was already 55. Our son, Kenneth, and our daughter, Amelia, had grown up and become respectable members of society. They were both living on their own, struggling with their new careers. Now it was time for Matthew and me to enjoy some peace. It was a plain life, but a happy one. I had always thought we would continue to age together like this. But then, one winter day, everything changed. Dad was in a traffic accident and passed away suddenly. He was only 72 at the time. Our family was engulfed in sorrow, especially since Dad had been so healthy. Mom was particularly devastated, hardly able to eat. "Mom, I know you're sad, but you have to eat." I kept telling Mom this over and over. "I know, but I just don't have an appetite. It feels like there's a lump in my chest." My brother and I thought Mom was just going through a rough emotional patch, so we watched her for a while. But then, Mom's weight started to drop rapidly in just half a month. Worried, I decided to take her to the hospital. "What? Cancer?" I was stunned when the doctor diagnosed Mom with cancer. It was advanced and inoperable, and she only had about a year left. I hadn't been able to do enough for my parents yet. Just when I thought we had only lost Dad, now Mom was going through this. I was even more devastated than when Dad passed away. But there was no time to stay sad forever. My brother lived far away and couldn't be relied upon. So, it was up to me to help Mom. I immediately told Matthew that I wanted to live with Mom. I couldn't leave Mom alone, both emotionally and physically, in her illness. But Matthew's reaction was not what I expected. "What? We just finished the funeral, and now I have to deal with your parents again?" Matthew said this with a sigh, sounding annoyed. "You don't have to say it like that. Isn't it enough to just drive her to and from the hospital? Why do we have to live together? I think she'll feel lonely. If it's not okay, maybe I can live at my parents' house for a while?" I suggested. Then, Matthew said indignantly, "What? And who's going to take care of my meals then? I'll come over to cook, of course. What about cleaning? Laundry? Who's going to do all that?" I was rendered speechless. I intended to do what I could, but I couldn't handle everything as usual. His pointed remarks hurt. I couldn't argue back if someone said that my desire to help and nurse Mom was just my selfishness. I knew Mom would probably hesitate and insist that everything should stay the same. But I desperately wanted to show my filial piety. "Fine, but I'm not helping with anything, understand?" Matthew grudgingly said this to me, who was silent. Although his attitude was arrogant, he had ultimately given in. "I'm sorry, and thank you." Even though I thought he was being quite terrible, he had agreed to my request. I held back my desire to retort and expressed my gratitude. Despite the disagreement, Matthew and I started living with Mom at my parents' home. We had been living in company housing provided by Matthew's company. Matthew was an only child. Thomas had expressed a desire to live together, so there were no plans to buy a home, and eventually, we were supposed to live in the in-laws' house. While he was still working, the company housing was more convenient for commuting, and the rent was only about $300 a month, not a significant burden. However, moving to my parents' house eliminated that expense, and the house was more spacious. I think living together wasn't all downsides for Matthew. As he had declared, Matthew didn't help with anything, but I was happy to be able to live with Mom. Mom seemed energetic, but she often felt weak and spent a lot of time lying down during the day. I prepare meals for Mom and make sure she eats them. I also arrange her medication. Doing all this alone would have been impossible for Mom. "I'm sorry, Madison. Thank you. It's a big help to have you here." I should thank Matthew too. Mom expressed her gratitude to us many times. I hadn't told her about the harsh words Matthew had said when we decided to live together, so she seemed grateful to him as well. One evening, after Mom had gone to bed and Matthew had come home, I served him dinner and said, "About Mom's treatment." But Matthew glared at me and said, "Don't tell me about it. I don't want to hear it. I told you I'm not helping." And refused to listen. I too wanted to vent or seek advice from someone. All I wanted was for Matthew to just listen. Matthew's attitude didn't change, not after a month, nor after 2. He complained about living with my mother, acting as if he was doing a great favor by agreeing to it. His behavior became increasingly arrogant and dismissive day by day. But I couldn't really say anything in response. The stress of worrying about Mom and being considerate of Matthew was building up. Around the time when a year had passed since Mom's terminal diagnosis, her health rapidly deteriorated, and she was hospitalized. 3 days later, she passed away. Despite being mentally prepared, I was deeply saddened. My brother's family and my children rushed to support me, but in times like these, you really want your spouse by your side. However, Matthew just laughed and chatted with the in-laws in a corner, not helping with the funeral at all. My brother took on the role of the chief mourner, and we somehow managed to prepare for the funeral. But Matthew sat at the very back of the relative seats when he should be seated at the bereaved family seats. "Matthew, I'd like you to sit in the bereaved family seats." When I said this, Matthew replied, "No, I'm fine here. I'm not a blood relative after all." "But you are my husband." Then Addison, who was listening to our conversation, chimed in. "He may be your husband, but he's not your mom's son, right?" "Matthew is my son, so he's an outsider." "That's right. We're Matthew's only parents." "You can sit in the bereaved family seats, Madison." Hearing the in-laws say this, I fell silent. While traditions may vary by region, in our area, it's customary for sons-in-law to sit in the bereaved family seats. As expected, when relatives noticed Matthew wasn't in the bereaved family seats, I overheard whispers like, "Did they get divorced?" It was embarrassing, and while those gossiping were at fault too, it would have been resolved if Matthew had just sat there. I felt a bit resentful that Matthew wasn't by my side, but we managed to give Mom a proper send-off. After the funeral, we returned home with my brother's family, my children, Matthew, and the in-laws. "Thomas, Addison, thank you for coming during this busy time." I expressed my gratitude to the in-laws and served them coffee. Then, they said, laughing, "Really though? First your father passed away, and now your mother. It's been quite costly for us too. But at least it's over now." I was stunned by their words. How could they say such things? I couldn't believe what they were saying. I forced a smile and left the room, trying my best to keep my composure. Then, as I walked away, I could hear the conversation between the in-laws and Matthew behind me. "Matthew, it must have been hard for you, living with someone else's family." "Yeah, Madison's stubbornness was quite a challenge." "You shouldn't always give in to your wife. It's okay to say no in a marriage." I clenched my fist. Their voices, chatting and laughing, filled me with anger and frustration, but this wasn't new. The in-laws had always been insensitive and rude. When I married Matthew, "Couldn't you have found someone more attractive?" "I worry about the grandkids' looks," Addison declared. "They say beauty bores you after 3 days. With Madison, that's unlikely to happen," he said. Matthew laughed at these rude comments. It was a pattern with this family. Something in me snapped. I realized that neither the in-laws nor Matthew had ever said a word of comfort to me, not during Dad's funeral, nor after Mom passed. Instead, they mocked me. Matthew's behavior and attitude as a person started to raise questions in my mind. I thought I had been too considerate towards Matthew when all I wanted was to do something for Mom. If Matthew had been supportive towards me, it would be one thing. But he wasn't, and there was absolutely no reason for me to feel so guilty towards him. My growing anger was overshadowed by the ongoing laughter and chit-chat of the in-laws and Matthew in the background. If my brother's family or the kids had overheard them, they would have been upset, but luckily, they were all in the kitchen. I was the only one who heard their conversation since I was in a different room, which was a relief. As I was contemplating all this, Addison's voice once again reached my ears. "Madison." "Yes?" I turned to respond. "Can I take this?" Addison was holding Mom's handbag. I was perplexed, not understanding what was meant by that. Addison responded to me, saying, "Your mom can't use it anymore, right? Matthew said it's okay to take it." Addison was examining the bag as if appraising it. It was so disrespectful, especially right after the funeral. I took the bag away. "No, you can't." "Huh?" Her expression changed, showing not just anger about having the bag taken away, but also that I, her daughter-in-law, had dared to stand up to her. Despite the intensity of her expression, I stood my ground and responded with equal determination. "We're not ready to go through Mom's belongings yet. We'll divide her things among family members later." Addison was furious. "What? Are you saying I'm an outsider? Didn't you just say at the funeral that even Matthew was an outsider? How does that make you family?" I couldn't help but retort. Hearing my words, Matthew and Thomas also turned red. "What are you saying? Apologize to Mom. How rude for a wife to say such things." Hearing the commotion, everyone else came from the other room. "After all the effort we put in, attending the funeral and cremation, to be called an outsider. Let's go, Thomas." Addison yelled at me in front of everyone and left our house. Matthew, too, angrily left with the in-laws. "What happened? Did you really say they were outsiders to Mom?" Everyone, having heard only Addison's words, said that to me. Indeed, if only that part of the conversation was considered, it might sound like I was the one being unreasonable. However, I explained the entire situation to everyone. Not a single person blamed me. "Grandma and Grandpa should have been more considerate. Dad's just the same. They've always been like that." My kids stood by me, but I couldn't forgive those three. Matthew didn't come home for a while, and I didn't contact him. I felt it wasn't right for me to apologize, and I wasn't ready to forgive. However, I knew I couldn't stay like this forever. One day, as I was pondering this, Matthew came home. "Welcome back." Seeing his face reignited my anger, but I suppressed it and greeted Matthew. Then, Matthew said, "It's been tough, hasn't it?" His awkward attempt at consolation surprised me. "Take the kids on a trip. It'll be a good change of pace." He handed me travel vouchers. I was speechless, and tears welled up. Maybe the kids had influenced him, but I was happy he went along with it. I immediately contacted my children to plan the trip. "Dad did? That's unusual." They were surprised by my suggestion. It seemed to be genuinely from Matthew. "I wonder if Dad feels sorry," I said, smiling. And so, I gratefully accepted the trip offered by Matthew. "I'll be going then." "Sure. Take it easy. Why not stay at the kids' places while you're at it?" "Really? I can't be away that long." "It's fine. I'll relax at my parents' house, so don't worry about me." Matthew said this as he saw me off. Amelia was happy to have me visit, so before the trip, I went to Amelia's and then Kenneth's place. Since I hadn't been able to visit them while caring for Mom, I helped them a bit with household chores, like preparing some meals for them to freeze. "Mom, you're not really resting, are you? But it's a big help. Thank you." Both of them were delighted to have my home-cooked meals. This was all thanks to Matthew's suggestion. Then came the long-awaited trip. I spent a relaxing time with my children at our destination. It seemed to heal the fatigue from caregiving and the sorrow of losing my parents. Although I was away for almost a week, both children returned to their homes with bright smiles. "It was fun. We should thank Dad once in a while." "Yeah, once in a while. But I wonder if he's up to something?" Amelia said this with a joking tone. "Don't say that. Dad thought about it in his own way." I laughed along with them. I planned to return home and share all these memories with Matthew, looking forward to a happy life together as a couple. But when I arrived home, I was speechless. "What's going on? Where's the house?" I looked around in disbelief, confirming my location. Despite being in a familiar place, my parents' house was gone. Then, Matthew appeared out of nowhere. The in-laws were behind him. They were wearing smug smiles, while I could only stand there. "Matthew, what's happening?" I asked Matthew, bewildered. Matthew, with a similarly unsettling smile as the in-laws, said, "Finally, the nuisance is gone. Now, it's time to live with my parents at my house." "What are you talking about?" I replied calmly to Matthew's arrogant statement. Then, Matthew continued, "Have you lost your mind too? Your family home has been demolished. Hurry up and bring your inheritance to my place. Whatever you inherited is ours now." I realized then. The reason our house was gone was Matthew's doing, and it was all for the inheritance. Despite having thought about the future on my way home, what a betrayal it was. I was overwhelmed with frustration and sadness. But even if they went to the lengths of demolishing the house, they wouldn't get their way. I wouldn't let them. I burst into laughter at the faces of the three, who were still sporting their smug smiles. My laughter seemed to confuse Thomas and Matthew, leaving them looking bewildered. "What? Why are you laughing? What a weird woman. Has she gone crazy?" Addison looked at me as if I were something bizarre. I faced the three of them and said, "You guys don't know?" "Know what?" I then told Matthew. "I didn't inherit anything at all. So there's no inheritance." I started laughing again after saying this. They must have mistakenly thought they would become rich from the inheritance. Their baseless assumptions and actions were so ludicrous, I couldn't stop laughing. "What do you mean? Explain yourself." Matthew demanded an explanation. But I chose to remain silent. I saw no need to enlighten them. Before that, let me say this. I won't live with strangers. If you want to live together, do it on your own. Instead of answering Matthew's question and refusing his initial proposal, Addison erupted in anger. "You helped your own parents with their housework, but you can't help us? You do understand there was a reason for that, right? I agreed to live together, didn't I? I said it wasn't necessary for us to live together. Have you forgotten that you chose to live together just to avoid housework?" Matthew and Addison bit their lips as I countered their arguments. "And demolishing my family home without permission, there are things you just don't do." I reprimanded the three of them. And then left the place. Behind me, Matthew called out, "Where are you going?" His voice rang out. But I didn't turn back. I needed to find a place to sleep for the night, and I really didn't want to see Matthew's face. I immediately consulted a lawyer. It's not that easy to just demolish a house. The house was still in Mom's name. As I wondered which company had taken on the demolition, an unbelievable truth came to light. Matthew and Thomas had directly demolished the house themselves. Thomas had asked a friend who worked at a demolition rented heavy machinery, it was all meticulously planned. Moreover, they had given me the travel vouchers to get rid of me. I felt pathetic for being so easily deceived and was incredibly angry. "Is there any way to punish these three?" I asked the lawyer with tears in my eyes. The lawyer smiled kindly at me. "For demolishing a house in your mother's name without permission, Matthew can be charged with property destruction, and you can claim damages. Let's start there and get Matthew and his parents to properly apologize." I nodded at the lawyer's words. The lawyer then immediately began the legal process. A few days later, after learning about the situation, an enraged Matthew called me. "What's this legal notice about?" "Oh, you received it? You destroyed an important house, so naturally, you need to compensate." "Compensate? We told you we were moving into our family home. We demolished a house nobody was going to live in. Instead of compensation, you should be thanking us. Now, bring whatever inheritance you have and come back home." Matthew arrogantly retorted. "Thank you for demolishing my house without permission? Don't make me laugh. And as for bringing the inheritance, there's none to bring since I didn't inherit anything." I shouted back at him over the phone. Matthew remained silent. It seemed he was startled by my raised voice, something unusual for me who rarely shouts. The reason I laughed when the house was demolished was precisely this. I had spent a year living with Mom. It was obvious we would have discussed inheritance. I had said to Mom, "I don't need anything. Give it all to my brother." So, my brother inherited everything, including the cash and securities. Instead, he had offered me the house, saying he lived far away and couldn't manage it. If I wasn't going to live there, it could be rented out. And so, I was supposed to inherit the house. Either you and Thomas restore the family home to its original state, or pay the amount specified in the notice. This amount! I'm being generous by offering a settlement. If you can't pay, I'll file a complaint and sue you. I spoke firmly. Sorry. I didn't expect you to be so angry. Of course I'm angry. Matthew started making excuses. He had thought that if my family home remained, he couldn't live with his parents. Thomas, in particular, had been hoping to live together for a long time. He took a liking to Kenneth and seemed to want to live with him. It was Matthew who refused to live together at that time, citing the difficulty of commuting, but the in-laws seemed to be under the impression that it was I who was against it, unaware of the real reason. So, they thought demolishing my family home and taking the inheritance would force me to move in with them. However, hearing this now didn't make it any more forgivable. So, please forgive me. I didn't mean any harm. Dad is remorseful too. If you're truly remorseful, then accept the settlement. I said this and hung up the phone. Matthew kept calling and sending messages, apologizing. If you're sorry, then just transfer the money quickly. I pushed Matthew away with these words. I knew the family home couldn't be restored, but demanding compensation was the only way I could process my feelings. Afterward, I stayed at Amelia's house. My brother's family and my children were aware of the situation. Even though my brother must have been angry about the house being demolished without permission. I won't interfere, but I'll help if you need it. Do what you think is right, Madison, he said. Everyone condemned Matthew's actions and supported me. A month passed without any payment of the deposit or damages. And there was no contact from Matthew. I couldn't rely on Amelia forever. I wanted to get the money and at least establish a stable living situation. Contrary to my wishes, something unbelievable happened. It was revealed to me through Amelia's casual remark. This apron looks like Grandma's, doesn't it? Amelia said this while showing me her mobile phone screen. Upon seeing the screen, I was taken aback. It was a free market app's product page. The apron that Amelia said resembled my mom's was actually a unique one I had made for her. How can this be? That is Grandma's apron. I made it, so I'm sure of it. What? Amelia quickly started checking other pages. The seller seemed to have recently registered, with 0 transaction counts and ratings. There were nearly 30 items listed for sale, and to my shock, all of them belonged to Mom. I immediately realized what was happening. It was Matthew's doing. He was the only one who could have taken Mom's belongings after demolishing the house. I called Matthew right away. What's with that app? App? Matthew responded with an air of inconvenience. Fuming, I didn't let him play ignorant. Don't play dumb. You're selling Mom's things, aren't you? Cancel those listings right now. Then, Matthew seemed to panic. What? No, it's not me. Who else would do such a thing? I'm coming over to get everything back. I hung up and immediately headed to the in-laws' house with Amelia. Where are Mom's belongings? As soon as we arrived at the in-laws' house, I called out for Matthew. We were met at the entrance. I don't know anything about it. Dad, tell the truth. Amelia backed me up, confronting Matthew. He looked troubled. As we were talking, the in-laws noticed our presence and came out. Oh, Amelia, you're here? Addison seemed pleased to see Amelia. But Amelia, visibly angry, confronted her. Grandma, tell Dad to be honest. Honest about what? It seems Dad is selling Grandma's stuff that was left when she passed away. At Amelia's words, Addison laughed. Matthew, looking troubled, furrowed his brow and repeated, It's really not me. Then, Addison said loudly, Matthew is selling them? That's impossible. But because I'm the one selling them. I felt as if the blood had drained from my face at her words. Matthew must have known. He looked at Addison with an expression that screamed trouble. Even as Amelia stood there in shock, Addison seemed cheerful. What did you say? It's quite a lot of work, you know? I have to pack things carefully and take good photos for the listings. Addison talked about the app as if it were an enjoyable hobby, seemingly oblivious to the fact she was selling stolen items. Had to restrain myself from lashing out at her. Cancel the listings. Those items aren't yours to sell. Amelia, now red-faced and teary, pleaded with Addison. But Addison looked displeased. What's the big deal? I've found a fun hobby. I use what I can and sell what I can't for a little pocket money. It's good for preventing dementia. Besides, I'm the only grandma left. Amelia, you want me to stay healthy and live a long life, right? Addison said this without any hint of remorse. Even as we appealed to her to stop, she showed no signs of regret. If talking won't work, then action is the only option. Amelia, let's go. But it's fine. Let's leave. I practically dragged Amelia out of the house and went straight to the police station. Although I hadn't intended to report the demolition of the house, theft was a different matter. I explained to the police that Mom's belongings were stolen and being sold. They acted immediately, and the free market app suspended Addison's account. At least now, no more items could be sold. On the way back from the police station, I called Matthew. I had Addison's account suspended. You knew about this, right? That makes you complicit. No, I've filed a report with the police. I expect you to cooperate with the investigation. Matthew became frantic at my words. But we're family. Please withdraw it. Family? You still haven't paid for the damage you caused to my house, and I don't see any signs of remorse. Matthew was troubled by my angry retort. However, I wasn't heartless. Despite everything with the in-laws, there was a history with Matthew that couldn't be ignored. Sighing, I said, I'll wait for the money, but I won't forgive the theft. Everything must be returned. Also, Thomas looked quite ill. Has he been to the hospital? What? I'm not a monster. Just make sure he gets that message, I said, and hung up the phone. I saw Thomas for the first time in a while. He barely spoke and looked significantly thinner than just a few months ago. His complexion was beyond pale, almost ashen. It was clear he wasn't healthy. But that family seemed oblivious. Addison focused on selling stolen goods and Matthew only putting on a brave face for me. They lacked basic empathy. The next day, Thomas called me. I expected gratitude but got the opposite. Why are you treating me like a sick person? Planning to shove me in a hospital to get rid of me? I have to protect Addison and Matthew from you. I won't go to the hospital. He was scolding me. Here I was, concerned about him, and this was his response. I apologize if I overstepped. I was just worried. I'm not weak and short-lived like your parents. Don't insult me. His words irritated me, but a few days later, he apparently felt unwell enough to visit the hospital. The diagnosis was terminal cancer. Matthew, in a panic, called me. Dad's got terminal cancer. What am I going to do? But I just snorted in response. I don't want to hear it. Do you know what he said when I suggested going to the hospital? I'm not weak and short-lived like your parents. Do as you please. How can you be so heartless, Madison? Who's the heartless one? Did you ever say a kind word to my mom when she was sick? Reflect on your own actions. I said this and hung up the phone. As expected, Thomas soon passed away. I didn't want to hold negative feelings towards someone who passed away, but I couldn't muster any tears for him, remembering all he had done and said. After his funeral, his will was discovered. The man who insisted he wasn't short-lived had everything meticulously planned. The house goes to my grandson, Kenneth. The rest of the estate is to be split between my wife and eldest son. I was surprised to hear Kenneth's name. Thomas had always favored Kenneth and wanted to live with him. Perhaps he hoped Kenneth would live in the house after he was gone. To Kenneth, this might have been an inconvenience. You should renounce the inheritance. You don't need that house. I advised Kenneth, but he was happy to receive it. The inheritance tax was a burden, and there seemed to be no benefit for Kenneth. However, he was pleased, so I decided not to interfere further. Kenneth inherited the house as per Thomas's will. Addison seemed pleased and paid the inheritance tax. He's our heir, after all. It's only natural, she said. Well, that's not incorrect. I was a bit downcast, feeling like I had lost Kenneth, but then something unbelievable happened. Come to our place. I received this message from Matthew and immediately went to the in-laws' house. There, like me once, stood Addison and Matthew, stunned in front of the house. In front of me, on the grounds of the in-laws' house, there was a truck with Matthew's name on it, along with employees. And there, right before my eyes, the in-laws' house was being demolished. What's happening? It's my house. I can do whatever I want with it, right? Kenneth, appearing out of nowhere, watched the demolition of the family home with satisfaction. Kenneth, what are you doing? Stop this right now. Even if I stop them now, it's not like anyone can live here anymore. Kenneth, what have you done? Addison and Matthew pleaded with Kenneth. But he just laughed. Have you forgotten what Grandpa and Dad did to Mom? Kenneth. Grandma, did you apologize for what you did to Mom? Kenneth's smile vanished, replaced by a piercing glare at Addison and Matthew. The two of them sank to their knees. The heavy machinery continued to noisily dismantle the in-laws' house. I finally felt a sense of relief. Later, Matthew finally paid the damages and the security deposit using the inherited assets. It turned out Kenneth had recovered the items Addison stole from Mom, and they were safely returned to me. Mom, you have me and Amelia. Don't worry. I shed tears of relief at his words. Addison and Matthew, having lost their home and with no money left, were now back in company housing. Matthew and I left the company housing. And now, returning to it with his mother, they've become the talk of the town. People are wondering what happened. I received such a message from the wife of a colleague of Matthew, who I'm on good terms with. So, I decided to tell her the whole truth, without any deception. The two of them will probably feel awkward from now on, but it's their own responsibility. Furthermore, after Matthew's resignation, the two, having lost their place to live, are now forced to economize in preparation for their new home. Occasionally, I'm considering asking my friends about how the two are faring, just for some conversation. Meanwhile, I continued to stay at Amelia's house, but then Kenneth decided to get married. He plans to build a new home. The land where the in-laws' house stood sold for a good price, which was unexpectedly beneficial. Mom, come live with us. Furthermore, Kenneth said that to me. His wife-to-be expressed her warm welcome to the idea, which I found very heartening. Since I couldn't stay with Amelia forever, I gratefully accepted his offer. Determined not to end up like Addison, I look forward to living happily with my new family. Children are a nuisance, so go to a facility. Who said I have a mom? My name is Madison. I'm in the 5th grade, living with my dad and mom. Dad is really kind, and he takes me out on his days off. Mom acts normal when Dad is around, but when he's not, she seems cold and distant, making it a bit hard to talk to her. See you. Dad, as usual, leaves for work early in the morning. As I eat breakfast. "I'll see you later," I said. Checking the clock, it's almost time for me to go to school. I need to hurry up and get dressed after eating quickly. "Thanks for the meal." After finishing, I place my dishes in the sink and head to my room to change. "Wait." Mom stops me, pointing to the sink. "Who's going to wash these?" Her eyes are cold, almost angry. Normally, I'd just change and go to school, but it felt like I'd be scolded if I did. I'll wash them," I murmured. "What?" "I can't hear you, you're too quiet." Mom suddenly yells. My body trembles. But feeling guilty, I apologize. "I'm sorry. I'll wash them." "Of course. From now on, take care of your own things." Mom angrily tosses her apron on the sofa and goes to her room. Reflecting on her words, I wash the breakfast dishes and leave for school. At school, while talking with friends, the conversation turns to parents. Hearing their stories, everyone else's moms seem kind, and though they get scolded, they seem close. "What's your mom like?" Suddenly asked by a friend, I'm at a loss for words. But I think maybe it's my misunderstanding that mom is cold, and her bad mood is because I haven't been doing things for myself. "She's very kind," I respond. Hearing this, my friend says, "That's nice." But I feel conflicted inside. I'm home. When I return home, mom isn't there. Maybe she went shopping, I think, and start my homework in my room. Before I know it, it's dark outside, and it's dinner time, but she hasn't come back yet. Then, I hear noises from the entrance and the fridge opening. Stepping out of my room, I see her in the kitchen. I am so hungry, so I go to the kitchen. "Welcome back," I said to her, and she responds, "I'm back." Her brief reply without looking back indicates she's still in a bad mood. "What's for dinner tonight?" I ask cheerfully. But maybe that was a mistake. When mom turns around, her face looks scary. "Huh? I told you to do things for yourself, didn't I?" Dad will be back soon, and I'm busy cooking." Unable to say anything more to her, I start to make instant noodles when Dad comes home. "Hello." Hearing Dad's voice, Mom quickly takes the instant noodles from my hands. Confused about what to do, Dad enters the kitchen. "Oh, are we starting dinner now?" Seeing Dad's kind face, I almost cry. "Welcome back. Just got back from shopping. Dinner will be ready soon. Just wait a bit more." Mom's face softens. I can't tell if she's still angry, but the thought of eating Mom's cooking makes me happy. Later, we have dinner as a family, and I have a fun time playing games with Dad. Maybe Mom was just in a slightly bad mood. Thinking that there won't be any more scolding if I take care of myself properly, I fall asleep. From the next day, I try my best to do things by myself. I wash the breakfast dishes, fold the laundry, put it away, vacuum my room. And when Mom comes home late, I make instant noodles for myself. Thinking that this will surely make her happy, my face breaks into a smile. Mom hasn't praised me yet, but she's getting less angry. When Dad is around, the three of us have a good time together. I was happy about that. One time, I heard a groaning noise and woke up in the middle of the night. Thinking it might be a ghost, I dove under the covers. The groaning continued for a while, and as I trembled with fear, suddenly I heard an ambulance. It stopped nearby, and I realized it was right outside our house. Wondering who it was, I got out of bed and saw Dad being carried out. "Dad!" I shouted, rushing over. Dad looked pale and was sweating, obviously in a lot of pain. Tears came to my eyes, and clinging to the paramedic. "Please save Dad!" I begged. The paramedic put a hand on my head. "We're taking him to the hospital now," he said. Then Mom and I followed the ambulance to the hospital, where Dad was taken away. We could only wait in the designated area. I was filled with anxiety, wondering what would happen if we lost Dad. But Mom, next to me, was handling her phone, not seeming worried at all. I cried alone, waiting for someone to tell me it was going to be okay. After what felt like an eternity, a doctor came over to us. Mom and the doctor spoke about something complicated, and all I understood was that Dad was ill and needed to be hospitalized. I was shocked that Dad had to fight a disease, and he couldn't come home for a while. Mom and I went home for now. After preparing for Dad's hospital stay, Mom left for the hospital again. Left alone at home, I lay in bed unable to sleep, and soon it was bright outside since it was early morning. School. I had to go to school. But I didn't feel like it. I didn't feel like eating, and just stayed under the covers. Aren't you going to school? Mom noticed me at noon. She didn't scold me for missing school but seemed busy and left for the hospital right away. Having eaten nothing since morning, I went to the kitchen. I ate the leftovers from last night's dinner as my meal. In the evening, Mom came back. She brought sandwiches. Eat this today. I also bought some instant noodles for you to eat from tomorrow. Okay. Thank you. I decided to follow her instructions, not wanting to bother her as she was busy with Dad. The next day, after having instant noodles for breakfast, I went to school. My friends asked why I was absent yesterday, and I lied, saying I felt sick. The teacher, seeming to know the situation, spoke kindly to me. When I got home, Mom wasn't there, probably at the hospital with Dad. I wanted to see Dad too. I thought I'd ask Mom to take me on the next day off. While doing my homework, the phone rang. I was the only one home, so I answered. Hello? Oh, Madison? What are you doing? It was Dad on the phone, and hearing his voice made me cry. Dad! Are you okay now? I want to see you. Hearing me cry, he spoke gently. Sorry to worry you. I'm okay now. I want to see you too. I'd be happy if you could come with Mom. Yeah. I'll ask her. Okay. Oh, is she there? I wondered where she was. She wasn't at home. I thought she was at Dad's hospital. Mom isn't here. Isn't she at the hospital? Hearing this, Dad seemed to realize something and spoke evasively. Right. She just left a while ago. She'll be back soon. Madison, have you had something to eat? Yeah. Mom bought some instant noodles and stuff. After I said that, he was silent for a moment, then. Is that so? He said, before changing the subject. After talking with him for a while, I heard the front door open, so I told him she was back. Dad asked me to hand the phone to her. And when she, who had just returned, took over the phone, she looked a bit shaken as she talked to Dad. I went back to my room, noticing the smell of cigarettes on her and wondering where she had been. The next day, Mom asked if I wanted to go to the hospital with her. I said yes, even though she seemed a bit reluctant, but she took me. Seeing Dad after a long time. He was connected to Infor but smiled when he saw me. Madison! You came! I hugged him. Seeing him looking well made me want to cry again, but I was so happy to see him. After talking with him for a while, Mom said it was time to go, and we left the room reluctantly. As I looked back, he was waving at me with a smile. Come visit again, he said. But I never thought that would be our last conversation. His condition suddenly worsened, and he passed away in no time. I couldn't believe he was gone, as Mom instructed me to wear mourning attire and took me to the funeral home. Many people came to say goodbye to him. Seeing Mom's detached demeanor made me wonder if Dad was really gone. Standing at the edge of the room, someone approached me. Hey, aren't you Madison? I turned around to see a woman standing behind me. I was confused, not recognizing her, and she sat down next to me. It's been so long. I'm your aunt, Madison, your dad's sister. Looking at her, I saw she resembled Dad. I had no memory of an aunt, but I remembered Dad talking about his sister. Aunt. Yes, your aunt. Don't I look like your dad? She laughed, looking just like Dad. Then she suddenly hugged me. It's okay to cry. You've been strong, Madison. I must have been crying already because her words made me cry even more. It felt like the moment I realized I would never see Dad again. After a while, as my aunt soothed me, I thanked her and went to get a drink. When I entered the room, Mom was there. Seeing my tear-streaked face, she said coldly, "What? You cried? What an embarrassing face." Her words hurt. "Mom, aren't you sad?" I couldn't help asking her, seeing she wasn't grieving. There's no point in being sad. He's gone. I trembled at Mom's cold words. I wondered if she hated Dad, despite all the happy times we had as a family. As I stood frozen, my aunt came over. "Oh, long time no see," she said with a smile, and Mom's expression changed. "Oh, it's been a while. Anything I can help with?" "No. There's nothing." "Then, Madison, let's go over there." My aunt took my hand and led me out of the room. It was clear that Mom was uncomfortable around her. Afterward, I stayed with my aunt until Dad's funeral ended. "Madison, it's time to go." A while after the funeral, Mom came to pick me up. My aunt had been holding my hand the whole time, but she let go to say goodbye. Her face looked a bit sad. "Madison, see you again." "Yeah, see you." Reluctantly leaving with Mom, an unfamiliar car pulled up. "Sorry to keep you waiting." A man, apparently Mom's acquaintance, was driving, and she opened the car door. I instinctively resisted getting into the car with a stranger. "Stop dawdling and get in." Mom's tone was unlike anything I'd heard from her before, and I reluctantly got in the car. The car drove in the opposite direction from our home, and I just watched the passing scenery outside. Feeling a bit scared in a car, not knowing where we were heading. "We're here. Get out now." As I was told to get off, there was a large building and I had no idea where I was. "Mom, where are we?" I asked, and Mom, lighting a cigarette, replied, "Kids are a nuisance, so off to the facility you go." "What?" Not understanding what I was told, a strange man and Mom drove away. I tried to chase the car for a while, but obviously couldn't catch up and gave up when I tripped. Lost and not knowing where to go, I was heading back to where I was left. Then, a car stopped beside me. The window rolled down and it was my aunt in the driver's seat. Never thought it'd come to this. "Madison, get in." Relieved to see my aunt, I quickly got into the car. She stroked my head and I cried quietly as my tension melted away. "How many times are you going to cry today, poor thing?" Riding in my aunt's car, we arrived at a house. It seemed to be her home. As I was told to come in. "Welcome home." A man's voice greeted us. I instinctively hid behind my aunt. "It's okay." Who laughed and said. I nervously looked at the man, a young guy standing and smiling at me. "Sorry, got you scared, huh? I'm this lady's husband. I guess I'm your uncle, in a way." He extended his hand for a handshake. Comforted by his kind face, I shook his hand, and he smiled again. "You must be hungry, right? We've got dinner ready, you need to eat a lot to grow." Annoying, just like Mom. Hearing their cheerful conversation, I couldn't help but smile too. Then my stomach growled, making me feel embarrassed, and they both burst into laughter. And so, I had a fun dinner time for the first time in a while. After dinner, they let me take a bath and even prepared pajamas for me. Then, "Come here." As I was invited to the living room, they had prepared hot milk for me. "Hot milk? Aren't you too old for that, Madison?" "Hey! Don't kids love hot milk?" "No?" In such a cozy atmosphere, I found myself laughing along. And they laughed with me. Then, "Sit down, we have something to talk about." As I sat down in front of the hot milk, they began to speak. "Hey Madison, how about becoming our child?" I was about to drink my milk and choked on these words. "What? Ah, sorry." It was abrupt, wasn't it? My uncle patted my back. My aunt laughed. Become our kid. You don't want to go back to that kind of mom, do you? I was deep in thought. I didn't hate Mom. But thinking about what happened at home, Dad, and being abandoned, I was honestly scared to go back to her. Actually, we've been in touch with your dad. What? I was surprised to hear Dad's name. My aunt explained in detail. The person with Mom was her affair partner, and Dad had realized Mom was cheating. He was very worried about me. Dad's illness had gotten serious, and he might not have long left. He asked them to take care of me after he's gone. Hearing this, I couldn't stop my tears and desperately wanted to see him. Your dad cared a lot about you and loved you. My aunt's warm hand stroking my head made me internally shout thank you to Dad multiple times. Dear Dad. Fun-loving Dad. I decided to become strong for Dad. I want to stay with you too. Hearing this, both my aunt and uncle were happy. Staying with them would require some paperwork and might take a while, but they said it was fine to stay together until then. I decided to help out my aunt and uncle as much as I could. Helping with breakfast and dinner, cleaning the bathroom and toilet, until they started worrying that I was doing too much. Told to play like a grade schooler, I couldn't think of anything to do, so I decided to start on my homework. Madison, were you always doing chores at home? I was asked by my aunt during dinner. When I nodded, my uncle sitting next to me hugged me. You've had it tough for a grade schooler. It's normal to help out. But I'm worried you've been pushing yourself too hard. Indeed, maybe I was trying too hard to get praise from Mom. Realizing something I hadn't been aware of before, I fell silent. All that effort, never praised. I guess she never really cared. You don't have to worry about anything here. You can help out, but what you should focus on are friends, school, and yourself. Take care of yourself. My aunt's words resonated with me. My uncle, looking like he might cry, nodded repeatedly. I felt so happy to be with them. 2 weeks after Dad's funeral, I was called to the staff room at school. Wondering what it was about, I was told that Mom had called. The teachers probably didn't know the full story. Thinking it would trouble them if I didn't answer, I picked up the phone with trembling hands. Hello. Madison. Answer the phone quickly. Her voice, which I hadn't heard in a long time, was a shout, just like before. Where are you? You're not at the facility I left you at. I couldn't find my voice and remained silent. Are you listening? Well, never mind. I'm coming to pick you up. Then I'll get some allowance money. I need money right now. Hearing this, I felt my feelings for her cool. To think I wanted love, praise, and even betrayed Dad for someone like this. I was filled with regret. Now I have my aunt and uncle. I have a place where I belong. Dad is watching over me. I can be strong. I don't have a mom, do I? Before I knew it, I had said that to her. What? What are you talking about? You must be mistaken. Goodbye. Wait. I hung up the phone on my own. The teacher beside me looked shocked and asked, Wasn't that your mom? To which? It was a stranger. I replied. The call was treated as a suspicious call, and the school issued a warning. Worried that Mom might come to pick me up, I called my aunt from the school's payphone. My aunt said she would come right away and soon arrived. She explained the situation to the teachers, who contacted the child welfare office. After I went home, Mom apparently did come to pick me up, but the teachers handled it, and she left reluctantly with a dissatisfied look. Mom never stormed into the school again, but just to be safe, my aunt or uncle started picking me up before school ended. I felt sorry, but my aunt and uncle said, Don't worry about it. With a smile. Thanks to them, I am living happy days. The teachers at school are also looking out for me, and I'm glad to have so many allies around me. Then, one day, a little while later, the phone rang at home. Lately, I've been answering calls to my aunt and uncle's house. So, as usual, I answered the phone. Hello. The voice I heard was one I didn't want to hear. Oh, Madison? So you were there after all. I froze, recognizing it was Mom. How did she know I was here? Nobody should have told her. Come back quickly. Things are tough here. She spoke unilaterally to my silence. According to her, her affair partner's company had gone bankrupt and they were out of money. If she was with me, she could get government assistance and couldn't live without it. She said she was in a de facto marriage with her affair partner and was considering breaking up if they couldn't survive financially. I couldn't quite grasp the story, only understanding that she needed me for money. That's what she had said when she called the school too, so she must be really out of money. As I remained silent, she got increasingly irritated. As I was being yelled at, the phone was taken from me. Turning around in surprise, there stood my aunt, smiling at me. But in the next moment, her face turned into a frightening one. Answer when spoken to. Are you listening? Enough. I can hear you even without the yelling. What? Mom's voice, audible over the phone, suddenly stopped. I was tense. Aren't you ashamed to be a mother? Telling your daughter to come back just for money? That's ridiculous. What do you think Madison is? You are none of your business. Madison is my daughter. Give her back. Who was it that left your daughter in front of a facility? Don't talk so high and mighty. I'll tell the police. Say that she was kidnapped. Go ahead, say it. We have evidence of the terrible things you've done to Madison. Actually, please tell the police. It might solve things quicker. What did you say? Listening to the argument between my aunt and Mom, I felt a bit down, like I was causing trouble. Then, my uncle, who had returned at some point, patted my head from behind. It's okay. Leave it to us. It's time for the adults to step in. Saying that, he took my hand and made hot milk again. Madison likes hot milk, right? You drink quite a lot of it. Yeah. I thought it was delicious the first time I tried it. That's why I like it. Hearing this, my uncle smiled happily. After a while, my aunt came back to the living room. Seeing my worried look, she awkwardly patted my head. What's with that face? Don't worry. She's no match for me. While fixing my hair. Thank you, I said to her. Then I helped with dinner preparation. I never knew helping out could be so enjoyable until I came to my aunt and uncle's house. A few days later, when the phone rang, it was Mom again. Even though my aunt and uncle told me not to answer the phone anymore, I wanted to help them in some way. Madison? Mom is really in trouble. I need your help. Like I said before, I don't have a mom. Well, what an ungrateful child. Weren't you raised by Mom? Have you forgotten the happy days spent with Dad and me? The mention of Dad surprised and irritated me. I had fun when Dad was with me. But the kind one was only Dad. Mom abandoned me. I was surprised at how loud my voice was when I spoke up. Then I felt my mood clearing. From then on, I talked back to everything she said. Are you even my child? I didn't abandon you. I just left you there. You said, kids are a nuisance, so go to the facility. You said it while laughing. Such a person is not a mom. I was forced to say that. It's not my fault. Still, I was abandoned. So I don't have a mom. If I have a mom, it's Abigail. Dad is Timothy and my deceased dad. Are you brainwashed? Stop talking nonsense and come back quickly. Before I knew it, I was arguing with Mom while crying. But strangely, I felt lighter, as if I had been holding back a lot until now. At least, let me live in the house you're staying in. I can't even eat if things stay like this. No. Don't bother the people I love. Suddenly feeling someone's presence, I turned around to see my aunt and uncle standing there. My aunt patted my head. Well said. My uncle nodded, almost crying. Then my aunt took over the phone, talking to Mom. She seemed strangely happy. According to my uncle, he was happy to hear my words. "I'm glad to be called Dad," he also said to me. It was something I said on my own, but if they're happy, maybe it's okay to think that way? I felt happy too. After that, there were no more calls from Mom for a while. Probably thanks to my aunt and uncle. Since I started living with them, they bought me a mobile phone. I was so excited to have my first mobile phone, and I exchanged contact information with friends who had phones, enjoying more than ever before. On a day of continued peace, the house phone, unusually, rang. Since the incident with Mom, the school had started contacting my aunt or uncle's mobile phones, and I had been given a mobile phone, so calls from friends came to my mobile. Wondering who it could be, I answered hesitantly. "Hello." Contrary to my high spirits, the person on the other end sounded very down. "Hello, it's me." At first, I didn't recognize who it was and thought it might be a wrong number. I had been told at school not to talk to strangers, so I was about to hang up. "It's Mom." "You've forgotten my voice?" "Ah." Upon hearing this, I listened carefully. And indeed, it was Mom's voice, but so lacking in energy that I had not recognized it. "You're already in 6th grade, aren't you?" There's no one else here right now." Saying that made Mom start to cry. I was stuck, not knowing what to do. "Actually, I'm in the hospital. I've fallen ill." "What?" Hearing about her being sick and in the hospital made me think of Dad. Now, recalling him doesn't make me sad. Rather, I feel energized by the good memories he left me. "No one is here to take care of me. Could you come and take care of Mom? And the hospital bills are piling up. I can't pay them. Can you ask Abigail for me?" "Say something, will you?" "Why should I, a stranger, take care of you?" "What?" "I refuse to pay for the hospital bills. And I won't tell Abigail." "Don't get cheeky with me. Don't get too big for your britches." She sounded too energetic for a sick person. Hearing about Mom being ill didn't shake me like it did when Dad was sick. My feelings for her had truly cooled off inside me. No matter what she said, I no longer felt fear. I didn't want to complain or say anything. Just felt sorry for her. I vowed never to become like her, even when I grow up. I was surprised at how coldly I could respond. "I've been given a mobile phone. And we hardly use the house phone anymore, so it's likely going to be disconnected. So this is really goodbye." Hearing this, Mom panicked. "Don't say that. Please?" "Oh, then give me your mobile number." "That's impossible. There's really no one to take care of me. No one to help with money." "Then I'll contact someone who seems like they could help." Mom seemed a bit mistaken by my words, sounding slightly hopeful. Hearing her hopeful voice made me sigh. I asked for the name of the hospital and hung up. Then immediately contacted my aunt. I told her about the conversation, and she worried about me but praised me for handling it well. When I made a request, she agreed and quickly contacted someone. Just as I told Mom, someone who might take care of her. A few days later, I noticed the house phone ringing persistently. It was probably Mom, I thought, and I didn't answer. It continued until night, even when my aunt and uncle came home. When I mentioned the constant ringing, my aunt sighed and answered the phone. Sure enough, it was Mom, and my aunt ended up in a battle with her. Mom kept demanding to talk to me, and my aunt refused. Mom's voice, overheard through the phone. "I didn't hear that my brother was coming. Why did you call him?" She sounded panicked that her own brother had shown up. The person I asked to contact my aunt was Mom's brother. I had remembered hearing before that Mom greatly disliked her brother. He was described as very stubborn, a person of deep loyalty and sentiment. Therefore, her affair was something that couldn't be tolerated. Her brother, having heard about it from my aunt, seemed furious and said he would come to pick her up immediately. Their sibling reunion after several years turned out to be a disaster. That seemed to have directed her anger towards us. My aunt, who had been battling with Mom, was unusually replaced by my uncle, who said, "Let me handle this." He is usually very kind, so I wondered if he could handle Mom, but as soon as he took over, his expression became fierce. "He's scarier than me when he gets angry," my aunt whispered to me. "Hey, cut it out. If you're so eager to talk, I'll tell you. I'll make you apologize in front of Madison. Sick or not, it doesn't matter. Be ready." My uncle yelled, and then apparently Mom hung up the phone. She hung up. After the call, my uncle was his usual self, laughing. It seems true that people who rarely get angry can be frightening when they do. After that, Mom was forcibly taken to her brother's house. It turned out that her illness was something that could be cured quickly, and she was able to leave the hospital soon. Mom, who had planned a lavish life with her affair partner, was taken to her brother's farm and had to help with farm work while living there. She initially resisted the farm work, but under her brother's pressure, she begrudgingly worked. Of course, she couldn't afford to buy luxury brands anymore and had to use second-hand clothes given by the villagers. As for me, it seems that all the paperwork was completed, and I was able to become the child of my aunt and uncle. They threw a celebration party for me, and I laughed more than ever before. And surprisingly, I found out that next year I would have a little brother or sister, which made me very happy. I resolved to cherish my family. From the bottom of my heart, that's what I think. I'm Vivian, 27 years old, and a pregnant woman about to give birth soon. My husband Bobby is 3 years older than me, a bit selfish, but I've always relied on him as I'm indecisive. However, being pregnant made me realize that boyfriends and husbands are different, and so are husbands and fathers. As a boyfriend, I appreciated him taking the lead, but as a married couple, it felt different. He just wouldn't listen to others. Whenever I gave an opinion, he would negate it, insisting he was always right. And now, as I'm trying to change into a mom, he still hasn't quite become a husband. He seems to hold the reins in our relationship. His values are, frankly, quite outdated. Sure, some couples work well that way. I've heard that was how it used to be. Husbands would earn a lot, allowing wives to focus solely on housework and childcare. But his salary isn't something to brag about. In fact, I was earning more before my maternity leave. I kept quiet about it though, to avoid upsetting him. He spends as much as he has, so we still keep our savings separate. I've been saving bit by bit, so I can manage the expenses even during maternity leave, something he doesn't seem to grasp. He probably thinks he's supporting me with his income alone. Likely, it's the influence of his parents. His mother has always been a housewife, with his father as the sole earner. That's fine. Both of his parents respect each other. I got that impression when I met them. A wife supporting her husband, and a husband supporting his wife, made it work. In our case, Bobby seems to look down on me. I don't mind him emulating Fael, but I wish he'd learn how to treat his wife as well. When Emael, Wallace, gave birth, Fael supported her as best he could and was proactive in childcare. Even at our first meeting, they seemed like a great couple, the kind I wanted us to be. With my due date being around Christmas, I wonder whether we should go to the in-laws' house. Then, an incident occurred at the end of the year, just before giving birth. In the afternoon, Bobby called from work. "Today's the last day of work before the holiday, so after I'm done, my colleagues will come over for drinks." Wait a minute, my due date is soon, right? You can't predict when the baby will come, at least go out to drink somewhere else. Faced with this unbelievable suggestion, I was at a loss for words. What? Are you trying to annoy me? I've already told my colleagues. Don't embarrass me. You always said, don't bring anyone over at the last minute. I told you first thing in the morning. Mom said she gave birth to me 2 days after her due date, and my sister was born a week late. So, a due date is just a guideline. That varies from person to person. Sure, a due date is just a prediction, but we need to be cautious around that time. That's exactly what Wallace said when I announced my pregnancy. But she also said, it would be so much easier if babies would just listen to us before they're born. Bobby, apparently not paying attention to that, continued after a click of his tongue. So, I'll stay home when the due date comes. Don't use pregnancy as an excuse to tie me down. I didn't see your messages today, so clean the house by the time I get back. It was messy when I left this morning. Don't embarrass me, and prepare food and drinks, okay? Remember to keep your promises. Wait, I'm pregnant. I can't even clean up. Remember I asked you to do it yesterday? The mess was because you didn't clean up. He seemed to recall and then got angry. You're a housewife, right? You're being supported, so don't make me do housework. Just do it already. Saying that, he hung up. The mess he was referring to was actually made by him yesterday. He had brought colleagues home just before returning once before. I did ask him to inform me in the morning, but I never expected him to do this, especially not so close to the due date. My belly weighs about 3 kilos now, putting pressure on my organs. You wouldn't understand unless you've been through it. I didn't understand until I got pregnant. My sister-in-law, who's already had a baby, keeps in touch frequently. I feel blessed to share these hardships with her. Wallace reminisces about the past and brings things I need, and Fael helps out too. The in-laws' house is really nice. The baby in my belly, perhaps worried about me, kicks me repeatedly. It felt like a sign not to comply with his demands. So, I called his office. The person who answered passed the call to him. Hello, Bobby? It's impossible today. My belly's been kicked so much, I just can't move. What? Don't call for something like that. I'll drink at a colleague's place then. Don't call the office again. It's embarrassing, cut it out. At least clean up. If you don't, it's divorce, understand? All I could hear was the cold electronic tone in my ear. I couldn't believe he was this terrible. Lately, he has been using divorce as a threat for everything. He thinks I'm afraid of divorce now that we have a baby. He uses it to make me anxious. According to him, it's discipline. The only reasons I haven't divorced him are the possibility of change after the baby's birth and the in-laws' presence. How can someone from such a good family turn out like this? Knowing Sael, it's definitely not the parents-in-law's upbringing. It must be his friend's influence. At our wedding, one of his friends said, "Keep your wife in check." After that, he started acting more arrogantly towards me. Since the wedding, he has been acting even more bossy towards me. Just then, the phone rang at the perfect time, and I answered it. Hello, Vivian, how are you feeling? Wallace, it's not my body. It's my mood that's terrible. Wallace sounded a bit panicked over the phone. The due date is Christmas, right? You might feel like you have a lot to do, but prioritize your baby and yourself first. Thank you. But the problem isn't that. I'm sorry to say, but I might end up divorcing. I don't want to part from you guys, but I've reached my limit with this incident. I couldn't hold back my tears anymore. Wallace sounded frantic on the other end. What happened all of a sudden? Can you explain? Bobby called earlier, saying he's bringing colleagues home tonight. He told me to clean up and buy drinks and prepare. If I can't do that, he said it's divorce. So, I guess there's no other choice but to divorce. I've been threatened like this for a while now. Even the usually cheerful Wallace was silent, listening. I'm sorry, I didn't notice. Bobby told me you were going to give birth near your parents' home. What? I'm not at my parents', I'm at our house. I didn't understand why he would lie about that, but her response clarified it. That's why I've been giving him money every day, as he said he could eat properly. I should have taught him housework to reduce your burden. That's my responsibility too. No, she did teach him. It's clear from how Sael is. He just chose to escape. Even Fael does the household himself. Really? I didn't know that. I'm sorry. I almost became an ungrateful wife without knowing the situation. No, it's our fault too. If you're not at your parents, we're neglectful parents. We should have helped more. When he gets drunk, he won't get away with it. I'll give him a piece of my mind next time. I was relieved to have a mother-in-law who would stand up for her son's wife like this. Thank you. I'm really happy I can rely on you, Wallace. You're like a real mom to me now. I lost my mother early, so her friendliness meant a lot to me. I'm feeling okay for now, so I'll try to clean up. I'll order the drinks for delivery and take a break once it's done. Don't push yourself too hard. If anything happens, I'll come right away. After I finished cleaning and was taking a break, he came back home. The party was mostly his colleagues being considerate, but a drunk Bobby started giving orders. Hey, we're out of drinks, bring some more. As he said this, a colleague went to get them, but that only made him angrier. Don't use my colleague, you've embarrassed me again. His colleagues, looking disdainful, soon said they had to leave. Fortunately, it was the holiday season, so there were plenty of excuses. As they left, he passed out, and I saw them out. One of them apologized profusely as they were leaving. We heard you were pregnant, but didn't expect you to be at home. Please take care of yourself. And stopped me as I tried to follow them to the door. After that, I don't remember much for a while. Later, Wallace told me she couldn't get through on the phone and found me unconscious when she arrived. She had called an ambulance in a hurry. I regained consciousness on a hospital bed. Still feeling weak, I decided to keep my eyes closed and rest a bit. Just then, the door to the hospital room opened. What the hell, you're sleeping soundly. I rushed here for nothing. The house is still a mess, nobody's there, and I get a message to come to this hospital? You've embarrassed me in front of my colleagues. It's definitely divorce now. In fact, wake up already, I need you to sign the divorce papers. The juniors were disgusted with you. A wife who can't even prepare properly, maybe I should divorce you quickly without you noticing the affair. That way, I can marry my girlfriend. No alimony, huh? Am I a genius or what? No, you're an idiot, I wanted to shout, but I had to pretend not to notice and gather evidence. But how? Just then, Bobby's mobile phone chimed with a notification. He looked puzzled. Why am I getting a message from Vivian? What? I'm keeping Vivian's phone? Take care of your wife if you want it back? Who is this, some creepy person? Take care of my wife, like I don't need her. Thinking I was unconscious, he kept talking. Ever since getting pregnant, she's gotten lazy with housework, doesn't care about her appearance, and just keeps getting fatter. That's natural, I thought, I'm pregnant with your baby. I need nutrition for two. The doctor even said my weight gain was appropriate. He probably doesn't know that. Ah, if only my mobile phone was nearby, I could have recorded this. And to think he's having an affair too. His morals are skewed, but so is that woman. Would you be able to forgive yourself if you were in the same position? Is it even right to engage in adultery with a straight face when your beloved's baby is about to be born? In the first place, is it right to commit adultery? Hey, is the person messaging actually her affair partner? That would make sense, huh? So she having an affair too? What ridiculous reasoning. Does he have the brain of an elementary school detective? People who cheat always think their partner is doing the same. Bobby must know he's in the wrong. There's only one truth, and no justification for infidelity. Then his phone rang again. Huh? I'm not the affair partner? Is this guy psychic? Then who is it? Strangers shouldn't meddle in our business. Who's a stranger? This is a family matter. The door opened, and Wallace barged in. What? Why's Mom here? Why wouldn't I be? I sent the message. Bobby seemed flustered by this unexpected visitor. No way, you came all the way from home? I didn't think you would be here, let alone have Vivian's phone. Don't tell me, Mom, you've been brainwashed with lies to excuse her laziness, right? She began to speak quietly, regretting what he had done. I've been listening to everything you've said since entering this room, using the mobile phone there. He looked where she was pointing and seemed shocked. She had hidden her phone in the gap of my bed and connected a call to my phone. The recording function was also used, so the affair was fully exposed. The worst part is, you neglected Vivian, who's risking her life to give birth to your baby, to mess around. You don't deserve to be a dad. It was an impulse. Vivian hadn't been paying attention to me for a while. Just then, one of my junior female colleagues was, well, giving me attention. Hearing those words, I reached my limit and sat up, shouting, "Don't joke with me. I'm trying to give birth with all my might. And you play around on a whim?" He, finding no words to reply, looked down in silence. You have acted despicably. If you mention divorce, I have no choice but to accept it. When it happens, I'll be on her side. I almost died giving birth to you. I've told you this before. Your sister can't forgive your actions as a woman either. She just gave birth recently too. He made a face as if to say, crap. Doesn't he understand that when having an affair? But look, I rushed here as soon as she woke up. The affair was a momentary lapse. I swear I won't do it again. I really wasn't myself. I won't invite work colleagues home anymore. I'll end the affair and give all my salary to you. Please, consider this my last chance. Saying this, he kept apologizing. I smiled and called out to him, Bobby. Hearing my voice, he looked at me, as if relieved of his guilt. Thank you, Vivian. I'll really change. What are you misunderstanding? This was your last chance. Understanding my words, his face shifted from relief to despair. By the way, Dad, me, and your sister haven't forgiven you. Dad even said, don't come home even if you divorce. Basically, you're disowned. I think that's only fair. No way, give me a break. Where am I supposed to go? He grasped at her feet as if begging. Bobby, you neglected your wife who's about to give birth, had an affair, invited colleagues home, and sent her to the grocery store. That's 2 strikes for me and Dad. So there's still... Before he could finish, I spoke. No. Sister-in-law makes it 3 strikes, and I'm the game set. We'll divorce once the baby is born. As for the broken promise, make sure you pay alimony and child support as a dad. I need to be a father to the baby. Don't divorce me. I'll give you all my money. I'll lose my position at work. Even now, he seemed more concerned about saving face. That's fine. Your work colleagues have already contacted me while you were on your way here. Remember when you invited them home without notice and gave out my contact? Someone I didn't recognize called, saying they were supposed to come today. I didn't know the situation, thought your wife went back to her parents. It'll probably be gossip after the holiday season. Please, explain to them it's a misunderstanding. Still seeking self-preservation, he didn't seem to care about me. Misunderstanding? It's the truth. The baby will be raised by me, my parents, and your family. We all agreed unanimously. By now, and make sure you keep your promises this time. This was what Bobby had told me over the phone. Her parents, your dad and sister, are coming soon. Take responsibility for your actions. We'll apologize for our son's misconduct at the end. Then we'll make sure she and the baby don't suffer. We won't be lenient. We'll front the money, but this isn't for you, it's for her. Work hard at Dad's friend's workplace to pay it back. You won't be comfortable at your current job anyway. You have no choice. Fine, I'll figure out the money. I'll remarry my girlfriend. She loves me. She's making money online streaming, something about relationship advice. Love me channel, that's it. I'll join her and make a fortune. Then I'll be a billionaire. Planning all alone, how foolish. Well, good luck with that, you're a fool till the end. Wallace, it's fine. Bye now. Bobby left cheerfully, but with trembling feet. He fled before Raphael and Sael arrived. The next day, I gave birth to a healthy baby girl. I had a lawyer handle the alimony and child support claims. Of course, I claimed from his girlfriend too. I continued interacting with my ex-husband's parents, and after settling into motherhood, I received alimony from Bobby. He refused the advance from Raphael and borrowed from consumer finance. And it seems, from shady places too. He thought he could repay quickly with his girlfriend's earnings. But reality isn't so sweet. His girlfriend left her job after their relationship became known at the company, making things awkward. The incident of him drinking at home spread around his company, and he quit. His last hope, the streaming, leaked somewhere, and the channel disappeared due to the affair despite being about relationship advice. Doing bad things doesn't pay off. Who leaked it? Sael was giving a thumbs up, but it must be my imagination. If he hadn't mentioned the channel name, maybe it wouldn't have gone this far. In the end, he couldn't pay back and is now missing. My daughter and I will surely be lovingly raised by two wonderful families.